and Celeste is here this time, so we'll have her give us a blessing of our food and whatever form it appears right now.
And so we pray. Holy and gracious God, thank you. Thank you for this time together. Thank you for the food that nourishes us. Thank you for the beauty of your creation. And help us to be very aware and good stewards of the precious resources that we have, particularly in this area. We're so aware of how precious water is. So may we listen and learn and share what it is that we learn, so that we too are going to be better stewards of all that you have given us. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Well, Karry's official bio is online, but I'd like you to meet Karry Rathje. And I called to see about having someone come talk about water. I mean, she just immediately said yes and sounded so friendly, so I knew we'd be in good hands. But officially, Karry is the Communications and Government Affairs Manager for Washington County Water Conservancy District. In this position, she manages all outreach activities with the media, elected officials, and the general public. She has 2 decades of industry experience. Prior to joining the district in 2013, she worked for a Las Vegas-based public relations and government affairs agency. Karry serves as the Utah representative on the Colorado River Water Users Association Public Affairs Committee.
Wow.
Oh my.
Can you say that again?
And is a member of the Utah Governor's Water Conservation Team and the St. George Chamber of Commerce Community Masterminds Committee. She has a bachelor's degree in communications with a special emphasis on public relations from Brigham Young University. And sounds like she's a very busy lady, so we thank you for spending an hour with us.
You need that. She has hers.
Oh, yeah.
Is this the one I'm supposed to use?
She has hers.
Getting mic'd up here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
I am super happy to be here. And I appreciate the awareness of water supply conditions and everything that's going on. And so I was asked, I forgot my little clicker over here. I was asked to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the conservation programs that we have going on and some of our projects. And I'm going to go through my slides really quick because my favorite part of any discussion is Q&A. So if you have questions, I hope to be able to get to those at the end, but I'm going to run through this presentation really quick. I'm not sure where to stand now that I know that we're being recorded. I just am one stand away. Where is a good place for me to stand? Where do you want me? I have a tendency to wander around.
Right in front of that chair.
You want me over here?
No, in front of, on this side of the table.
On that side of the table?
Yeah,
I'm still
right there.
dancing
Right
around.
there.
Don't mind me.
That's good.
I feel like then am I okay right here?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. That way I feel like I'm talking to you and not at you. So really quick overview about the Washington County Water Conservancy District. They're a not-for-profit public agency. We're a government agency that was founded in 1962 at the petition of property owners who knew that we needed to develop a regional water source, so that we had a more stable supply. We provide water to 95% of Washington County's population, and we manage billions of infrastructure today. Everybody knows that Washington County is one of the fastest growing regions in the entire United States. We are ranked second in the United States for job growth. We have more than 10 million annual visitors. And a lot of people are intrigued to find out that we actually have more visitors per capita than Las Vegas, which is a tourist destination. But on a per capita basis, we actually have more visitors than that community. We average a woeful 8 inches of rain a year on a good year. Some years we don't even get that much. We have a sole source of water in Washington County. Most people are surprised to hear that. All of our water comes from the Virgin River Watershed, or the Virgin River Basin. It's a small desert tributary of the Colorado River. It's drought prone and it is fully developed. This is how the water that we have is currently being used. About 70% of our water is being used by the homes in our community. 14% by businesses, 1% by industrial, 17% institutional, which would be your schools, your houses of worship, your golf courses, or any of those types of recreational facilities. So we've talked a little bit about how much water we have. We've talked a little bit about how it's used in the community. Let's talk for just a second about population growth. We are one of the fastest growing regions in the entire country. We have grown over 1,200% from 1970 to 2020, and we're projected to have an additional 155 to 200% increase between 2030 and 2060, according to the latest population projections from the Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute at the University of Utah. They prepared the projections on growth for the entire state of Utah. And so we use that resource that's available to us. The other interesting thing, we've talked a little bit about Washington County as a high tourist destination. It's also a very popular place for second homeowners. More than 20% of our homes are owned by second homeowners. And the reason why that's important is because these people come to our community, they are not counted in our permanent resident population base, but they require water and they require infrastructure to serve them. So the water district always looks at what is our actual population when you account for these non-permanent residents. And we just finished our most recent analysis from 2025. We had Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute do that for us. They look at vital records, school records, tax commission records, and they estimate that they use that for the permanent resident, and then for the non-permanent resident, they look at hotel occupancy, they look at visitors to state parks, they look at federal parks, and they look at Airbnbs, and all of those other things to calculate, and they said that a conservative estimate would be about 33% increase to your population base. So that means that today, Washington County's water supply infrastructure serves about 280,000 residents. When you factor in those non-permanent residents, those visitors. It does not count for day visitors in that analysis, and so that's why I say it's a conservative estimate. But on average, that's what we're planning for right now.
Now that's Washington County in total.
That's Washington County, yeah. And then
I can see you better now.
spotlight. This is getting better. Next, the disco bar is going to drop down, and it's really going to become a party. Okay, so let's talk about our 20-year water supply outlook. So the water district is always looking ahead. We have to be very proactive with our planning because a lot of our projects take decades to complete because of a super fun environmental process. There's a little sarcasm in that too. It takes decades and millions of dollars to get projects approved before we ever put a shovel in the ground. But if you look at our 20-year water supply plan, we plan to add about 40,000 acre-feet of water, which is enough water to serve 70,000 homes by 2046. You'll see from that most of that is going to come from reuse and conservation. So I'm going to focus some of my remarks on conservation and reuse, but we are also doing some new local water supply optimization projects. We're doing some available agricultural conversion. We only acquire agricultural water that becomes available in the free market. We're not actively pursuing or condemning. We have great respect for our ag users. Then some groundwater optimization projects with our local municipalities. But our projects, that 40,000 acre-feet of water will cost us well over $2 billion. So we say in Washington County and other parts of the country, we're not running out of water, we're running out of cheap water. All of these inexpensive projects have been developed. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about,
Yeah, well, you say we're not running out of water.
Uh-huh.
And these efforts are designed to achieve that additional 40,000 acre-feet by conservation.
Yep.
And by reuse.
Correct, primarily.
Yeah, and so how do you get that additional capacity
additional supply.
for,
Yeah, you bet.
another 100,000 people.
Sure, we're going to talk a little bit about that as we progress through the slides. And if I don't answer your question during my presentation, let's come back to it at the end and I'll.
And one other background question, you earlier said that the Virgin Water aquifer was fully used.
The
How do
Virgin
you
River
determine-
Basin.
Yeah, how do you determine that?
So that's done by the Utah State Engineer. They look at the reliable yield of all water supplies throughout the state. And there are water rights that are issued for that supply. And it is very common, not just in Utah, but everywhere, for water rights to exceed the allowable supply. So that is why when you are hearing about some water supply shortages, it's based on the priority date within a state. So all water rights have a priority date, and we have to deal with what Mother Nature provides us on an annual basis. And so some years we are able to fulfill most of our water rights that are in use, and some years we are not. The reason why we do not have a water supply shortage issue on an ongoing basis in those low water years is because the water district has invested billions of dollars in infrastructure to store water in our local community. So in a dry year like this one, we are living off of our reservoir storage. Whereas in the agricultural community does not have large reservoirs for storage, and so they experience those shortages in the system based on their priority dates and based on the available water supply.
What do you mean by priority date?
So every water right has a priority date tied to it. So if I apply to use 1,000 acre feet of water from the state, I have to acquire that water right, and that water right has a fixed priority date based on when it was put into use.
Still don't know what that means.
Let's keep going because
Okay, sure.
if I don't get through that's a very specific question, but I'm happy to talk to you about water rates. Let me run through the rest of this presentation to cover kind of some of the other questions that I was asked to cover, and then I'll chat with you a little bit about water rates afterwards. Okay, gonna switch gears really quick and talk about conservation, because conservation is one of the most important and most inexpensive things we can do to extend our local water supply. And in Washington County, we really are leading the state of Utah in our conservation achievements. And we're getting statewide and national recognition for what we're doing in terms of conservation. We have achieved a 50% reduction in per capita water use since 2000. A good, aggressive target in per capita water use reduction is 1%. We are 50% in 25 years. So we are punching well above our weight when it comes to per capita water use reductions. So we are very proud of that statistic. We have also adopted Utah's highest new development standards, and I'm going to talk a little bit about more of those in a subsequent slide. We've replaced almost 4 million square feet of grass. We've established an excess water use surcharge, a high water use policy, and we are the first in Utah to adopt a regional water conservation plan, ensuring that all of our municipalities and partners are all on the same page when it comes to our water use reduction goals and programs. So our Water Efficient Landscape Program, we have received over 5,000 applications in less than 3 years. We launched this program in December of 2022. Well, actually, it would be just over 3 years. In December of 2022, and since then we have replaced almost 4 million square feet of grass. That is saving our community 164 million gallons of water every year. Washington County accounts for 6% of Utah's population, but on a statewide level, we have replaced 51% of the grass. So just 51% of the grass in the entire state of Utah occurred right here in Washington County with 6% of the state's population. So we are definitely getting the attention of our state leaders. We also, in 2023, we adopted what's called water efficiency standards. These are for new connections, people that are connecting to the water district system. And the reason why we adopted these is because we knew that we had a water supply limit and we wanted new development to be as efficient as possible. So effective 2023, all of our municipalities have passed an ordinance prohibiting non-functional grass at commercial, institutional, and industrial developments. So if it's functional, if it's a play field, if it's a park, we love that. We want our community to have recreational opportunities, and grass serves a purpose for those uses. But what we don't want is the ornamental streetscape. You can't play on it, you can't water it efficiently, it just doesn't serve any purpose other than aesthetic. So that is now banned in future developments. Grass is limited in residential developments to 8% of the lot size, with a cap for large lots that depend anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 depending on the municipality. The reason why we focus so much on grass is because grass uses about 60% of our public water supply. Most people don't realize grass is a very, very thirsty, non-native plant to our desert community. And it takes a lot of water to keep it alive. And so a lot of our conservation programs are focused on outdoor water use because it is such a high consumptive use, but also because indoor water uses we can collect via the sewer system and treat it and put it back into production. So I'm going to talk about a little bit more about that as we progress through the slides as well. There's a host of other indoor and outdoor requirements like smart fixtures and appliances and so forth. They're all posted online. But again, we wanted new development to be as efficient as possible. These are required standards. In 2025, we adopted voluntary standards that you can opt to accept in lieu of a reduced connection fee or a reduced impact fee. So our impact fee right now to connect to the district system is $17,500. That is based on the cost of our projects and how much we estimate it will cost to serve that connection. And so a savings of $6,000 for that connection fee is fairly significant. But in exchange for that reduced impact fee, we are asking that you be even more aggressive with your conservation standards. Only drip irrigated landscape at a maximum of 2,000 square feet. So no lawn is allowed, no private swimming pools, and there's a host of other requirements. We do encourage neighborhood amenities like parks or even community swimming pools to serve this population, but because we are doing everything and anything we can to reduce our individual footprint when it comes to new development and water supplies, this is a voluntary optional program that has been rolled out last year. The excess water use surcharge. We hear a lot of people that are not the biggest fans of growth. They would like the district to not allow for new connections. And the district does not have any jurisdiction or stewardship on land use permitting or project approvals. We're not involved in that process. We simply have an agreement with our municipalities that we serve the projects that they approve. But in order to do so, we need to make sure that there is compliance with the ordinances, because we estimate our water based on how much we think that development is going to use. So for example, a single family home, we estimate it will use about 0.6 acre feet of water a year. If somebody comes in and uses well over that, it impacts other users in our available supply. So in coordination with the state, who asked us to come up with a way to ensure that our connections were meeting those conservation standards that we have established, we established what's called an excess water use surcharge. So anybody that's connected to the water district system before January 1st, 2023, or was an original contract, they receive 36,000 gallons of water per month on an ongoing regular basis. If they exceed that, there is a small punitive $1 per 1,000 gallons fees added to that, because that would be in excess of what we budgeted for their connection. Connections after January 1st, 2023, when those ordinances were passed, are given seasonal thresholds. 8,000 gallons of water in the winter, 15,000 gallons in the spring and fall, and 20,000 in the summer. If they exceed those thresholds, their excess water use surcharge is $10 per 1,000 gallons that goes over that amount. To put this into perspective, the average home uses about 2,000 to 3,000 gallons of water per month for 2 or 3 people living in a residence. So you can see how much water is being used outside of the home.
When you say outside the home, landscaping,
Landscaping.
I had a question, the prior slide, did many people, I know it's early.
Yeah.
Have many people taken advantage of the voluntary standards?
Surprisingly, so we require any municipalities that want to adopt these ultra water efficient standards, they have to have an agreement with the district saying that they will help us with compliance and that they will also establish the excess water use surcharge rates that I was just talking about. They are capped at 8,000 gallons of water a month. Once we have that agreement with the city, and we have that from Washington and Ivins, then developers can participate in that project. It has been very popular with some of these community developments where you're having like a G.R. Horton development that has come in and builds multiple homes, and then they do the community amenities. If you're familiar with Long Valley, that would be a project that would comply with the ultra water efficiency standards. We have had, I think, a couple hundred that have come online this year, so it's definitely growing in popularity, and we anticipate that as additional cities meet the qualifications for the program, it will only continue to grow. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of interest from developers. Good question. We also have passed a high water use policy. This is unique in Utah. A lot of areas don't have this, but we looked at, and we did this in 2025, we looked at our regional supply. We met with our municipalities. We are a regional provider. And we said, okay, we need to be strategic with the projects that are being approved in our community. Because if one large water using project comes online, it impacts our entire system because it's a shared resource. And so what we did is we established a large water user policy, which essentially prohibits any development that uses over 9 million gallons of water from being connected to the district system without going through the a application and a voting process through the district. We have what's called an administration advisory committee. It constitutes the mayor and city manager of each municipality. They are the voting members on this panel. So all of our city mayors and managers would vote on whether or not this high water use should be included in our community, should be connected to the district system. If that committee does not approve that by 2/3 majority vote, then we will not provide water to that resource. And we did that again to establish equity, to make sure we're managing our water supplies wisely, and to make sure that there's collaboration and unity amongst the communities. The exceptions for this, because there does need to be exceptions, right? Number one, the project supports a critical public interest. Think of like your hospitals. Hospitals use well over 9 million gallons of water a year, but are they an essential community service? Absolutely. So the district does not want to compromise our excellent healthcare options in the community. The applicant is using aggressive water efficiency measures, or the applicant significantly increases the economic productivity of our water supply or infrastructure. So that would be the decision of the mayors and the city managers from all of our cities to determine if any high water use project meets that criteria. We haven't had any applicants since this was passed in 2025, but we were very proactive because we are very mindful of the data centers and the water bottling companies. We had St. George was approached. What kind of started this is St. George City was approached about providing water for a water bottling company, that they would just bottle our water and export it out of our region. St. George said no. So they said, okay, we're gonna go to Hurricane. And so to prevent that from occurring in our region, this policy kind of helps provide a safeguard and an appropriate protocol for those types of developments.
Hurricane is not part of Washington County.
It is.
It is.
Yeah, that's why, hence the need to, so St. George, Washington, Hurricane, Santa Clara, Ivins, Lafurcan, Tokerville. Yes, sir.
There's been a couple of high-profile projects in the news recently, Water Park,
Yes.
Golf Course. Are they not 9 million gallons?
They are not connected to the district system. Yeah, so that is such an important question, and I'm so glad you asked it. The district only has jurisdiction over its water rights. Going back to water rights, we only have jurisdiction over our water supply. So, depending on which project you're talking about, do you mind specifying, is there one in particular you're interested in? So, a couple that are getting some publicity right now, Zion Shores in Washington City, that is using a private water right, and I have to give Washington City credit. They worked with the developer quite a bit. That project was approved and those water rights were entitled over 20 years ago. And the city council worked with them to reduce their water supply footprint and to incorporate some other water conservation messages, but in their approval from the city, they said you are not allowed to get water from the city or the district, period, for this particular project. There's also another project that's being considered. The developers of Black Desert are looking at a potential golf course on the Shivwitz Reservation. The Shivwitz have a water right, a tribal, as part of their tribal water right settlement. They are a sovereign nation, and the district does not have any jurisdiction over that water right. So we support the tribes and the private parties' use of their water rights however they deem appropriate. We don't get into that. So they would not be required to go through this process because they're not connecting to the district system.
I assume their water right is finite.
It depends on which one you're talking about. So they would have the priority dates tied to them as well. The tribe has multiple water right settlements. They have 2,000 acre feet of a guaranteed water right from St. George City, which is what they're looking at for the potential golf course development. So that is a guaranteed water right. Then they have some other, they have water share in Gunlock that's subject to shortages because of the priority date. And then they have some groundwater resources that are private as well. Good question, very good question. And that's something that we get a lot of criticism for, is because we're out here talking conservation, 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 and then they're like, water park approved. And people feel that it's disingenuous, but they don't realize that that's a private water source. And the district respects private property, and water rights are like private property. We don't have any jurisdiction over those. So very, very important clarification question. Yes?
Well, would any of the use of their water, however they're obtaining it, take in any way, I don't know enough about
Yeah.
geology now, take from any of the resources of the general public?
Yeah,
But
that's a complicated, good question with a complicated answer. So the water rights are established to guarantee that one person's use does not impact a higher, I'm trying to think of the easiest way to say this. Let me say this. Their use, for example, I'm going to be specific because that's the best way to do this. Zion Shores in Washington City. That is not a water source that the district is currently using. So it will not take from the public water supply. Is it a water source that could potentially be added to a public water supply in the future? Yes. But is it taking from the existing supply? No.
Okay, so is that a well?
Yeah, they have a well.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a groundwater well. Good question. But does that answer your question? So it's not taking from our current supply, but
It could.
in the future, it's a source that could have been introduced to the public water supply if it were available.
But it's all the same aquifer, isn't it?
Well, no, there's actually multiple aquifers throughout Washington County. Yeah, so you can like, for example, take Sand Hollow. Sand Hollow Reservoir was intentionally built to seep into the Navajo sandstone aquifer beneath the reservoir. Most people are surprised to learn that Sand Hollow Reservoir holds about 50,000 acre feet when it's full, but there's capacity to store up to 300,000 acre feet under the reservoir. So you'll see, if you go to the reservoir, you see all of these terracotta colored buildings all around the reservoir. Those are wells. So we're pumping that groundwater out of that aquifer and putting it into production. We can tap into the Sand Hollow aquifer and it doesn't impact the water supply in Ivans. But that goes back to water rights. Again, there's water rights, whether it's a surface water supply or a ground water supply or a spring. Those are all allocated via the state engineer on the water right system. So yes, tapping into one groundwater source doesn't necessarily impact another. It just depends on if they are hydrologically connected. If they are hydrologically connected, then there has to be, then it gets into a little bit of trickiness with the water rights and the priority dates and who has the beneficial use of that supply. But yeah, good question.
You said that the tribal Shibwitz reservation has St. George water.
They have as part of their settlement agreement, they are allocated 2,000 square feet of reuse water from the St. George Regional Water Reclamation Facility as part of their tribal water rights settlement. Correct.
Is that potable water?
It is, no, it's reuse water. Yeah. Good questions. You guys are, this is fun. I'm gonna talk about reuse. Perfect question. Now we're segueing into our regional reuse system. Most people are surprised to learn that Washington County has been reusing its water for about 20 years. We use it to irrigate parks, golf courses, cemeteries, schools, and some residential developments. For example, Desert Color is all irrigated with reuse water from the St. George Water Reclamation Facility that's right across the freeway from them. But we are looking at significantly expanding our system so that we can use more reuse water. So this is a map of our county here. If it's in black, it's existing infrastructure. Anything that's in color would be new infrastructure. The regional system will produce about 24,000 acre feet of water by 2046. That's enough water, just to put that into perspective, for about 40,000 homes. That's a lot of water. It will cost approximately $2 billion. This is, am I okay if I walk over here for a second? Because this does work. This is our current water supply cycle, okay? We have water that comes out of the Virgin River. We have a diversion that's up by Virgin. And we move that water right now, and it's stored into one of two drinking water reservoirs, either Sand Hollow or Quail Creek. We take water from those reservoirs and we run it through our drinking water treatment plant. From there, it's delivered to our cities who use that water, and any water that's used indoors flows to a water reclamation facility. We actually have 3 water reclamation facilities throughout the county. We have one in Confluence Park over in Laverkin, we have one in Hurricane, and then we have St. George Regional. St. George treats Washington, St. George, Santa Clara, and Ivans, and the east side treats Hurricane, Laverkin, Tokerville, and so forth.
Where is the one on St. George?
St. George is over by Bloomington. Yeah, and that treats quite a bit of our wastewater. So right now, water from the water reclamation facility can go one of 2 places, okay? It can go back into the river, and then it flows downstream and out of Utah and goes down to Nevada and actually ends up into Lake Mead. Or it can be used for irrigation. And again, that's used for irrigation of crops, landscapes, parks, cemeteries, schools, golf courses, all of the above. But what this regional reuse system will do, the first phase, super important, is it will add water storage. It's going to add additional reservoirs, and it will be multiple reservoirs. Why are reservoirs so important? Because most of our irrigation demand happens in the summer. And if we don't have a place to store that water, it flows down the river and out of the state. We are able to put it into production and use. So our goal is to run our reclamation facilities more aggressively and expand them so that we can store that water when it's being produced in the winter months, and we can use it to offset that summer demand. The second phase of the reuse system is we're going to take water from the water reclamation facility and we're going to run it through an advanced water purification plant. That will treat that water to exceed or meet safe drinking water standards. And then we will take that water and we will put it into our water storage reservoirs, and we will let that cycle run over and over and over again. So the system will have 3 newer expanded water reclamation facilities, 4 new reservoirs, 2 existing reservoirs because we're going to put that drinking water back into Sand Hollow and Quail Creek, a new advanced water purification facility, 60 miles of district pipeline. There will be additional pipelines on the municipal level, but 60 miles of pipeline and multiple pump stations. A lot of people comment and say that Washington County's water rates are so inexpensive, and it is because we benefit from a gravity-fed system. Our water generates in the mountains and it flows downstream. It travels about 100 miles before it gets to your home, but it's all gravity-fed. The reclamation facilities are at the bottom of the system, but what happens when you go to put that reuse water back into the communities? You're going to be pumping it back up, and so there's a lot of pump stations, and because of the treatment and the pumping costs, it is fairly expensive water. So the first phase will be the non-potable reuse. That is where we're going to be expanding the reuse facilities and the infrastructure and adding storage so that we can provide secondary irrigation and also do some agricultural exchange. Our thought process is a lot of our agricultural community is drawing water from the Virgin River, and if we could provide them with reuse water and keep that water in the Virgin River, it provides additional drinking water to the community because we can put that into our water treatment plant. And the agricultural community is super happy because reuse is a higher quality than our raw water supply. So they're not getting all that dirt and silt into their system. It's actually more efficient for them. So our first phase will be the agricultural exchange and the secondary irrigation, and then as additional drinking water demand comes online, we will add the advanced water purification and start doing the indirect potable reuse and the groundwater optimization. I have 2 hands. I'm going to go to you. You raised your hand first, and then I'll come back to you.
Back to that image.
Yeah.
Right there. The arrow on the right takes the water and puts it back in the Virgin River.
Correct.
Are we required to do that?
We
or-
have a minimum fish flow requirement because we have Washington County is home to some of the rarest fish species on Earth. Lucky us. And so we do have a fish flow requirement, but there is no contractual obligation to send water downstream for any downstream users. Good, great question. And you had your hand raised.
So the additional reservoirs,
Yeah.
you made a point that Sand Hollow Reservoir can actually take more water because it's connected to the
Groundwater aquifer.
groundwater aquifer. Will these other reservoirs have that capability?
Some of them do not have the geological capacity to do
Right.
that. So it's interesting, there have been hundreds, more than I can even count, of areas in Washington County that has been studied to determine if it was going to be a good location for a reservoir. And we just don't have the best soils, and we have a lot of geological formations that make a reservoir site more difficult than in other areas.
Mhm.
So no, Sand Hollow was intentionally built to augment our groundwater aquifer. It was built on Navajo sandstone so that it would seep into the ground, but a lot of our other reservoirs will not have that function.
And so they suffer from high transpiration losses.
All reservoirs have some evaporative losses. Yeah, for sure. We definitely lose water to evaporation. That is the case anywhere where water is being stored, unless it's in a groundwater basin.
Yeah, exactly my point.
So the interesting thing about that, I mean, this isn't part of my presentation, but one of our reservoirs is Kolab Reservoir. Kolab Reservoir is at 8,000 elevation. It's significantly higher. So in response to demand and evaporative losses, we keep our water supply in Kolab as long as we can. We don't send it down until the fall. And it comes down through Zion and into the Virgin River, and we capture it and put it in Quail Creek or Sand Hollow. But we manage our operations to minimize evaporative losses where possible. So, but we are a little bit limited on what we can do there. Yeah.
Are all golf courses and parks and schools required to use the secondary water?
If they have the resource available, there is one golf course that does not have a secondary, because it requires a separate system. So we don't deliver, sorry, I have this little battery pack that's pulling on my, I don't have pocket or belt, so I got my microphone attached to the back of my shirt. If there is a system, because we can't mix potable, drinking water with reuse water or raw water, secondary water, depending on what you want to call it. So if there is a system that serves, if there's two systems that will provide that source, then yes. There's only one golf course in Washington County that's not currently connected to a reuse or a secondary water system, and St. George City is looking at options to expand that line. So, good question, yeah.
So we are not connected at all to the Colorado River?
So the Virgin River is a small desert tributary of the Colorado River. We are not currently getting any water from the Colorado River in our community, but we are being fed by the tributary. Utah uses Colorado River water, though, just to make sure we're clear there, yeah.
You talked before about homes, that
Yeah.
X number of homes, but more and more, not so much homes, we have now apartment houses.
Yes.
Which have a whole lot more people in a space
Sure.
than homes. How do you account for that?
So multifamily housing is more water efficient than a single family homes, surprisingly. So you can put higher densities and still have a lower water footprint because they don't have the landscape. Remember, about 60% of our public water supply is used for landscaping. So it's much more efficient to have large community amenities rather than individual yards for each resident. Good
But
question.
the amount that that number of people would be using just generally, it doesn't.
It's not, yeah, our
Not what you said.
indoor water use is actually relatively efficient. Yeah, great question. Okay, let's see what else I have here. Oh, the advanced water purification system, a lot of people have questions about the treatment process. It does remove chemicals, pharmaceuticals, salts, bacteria, viruses. It's a very extensive process, and it is being done all over the world. There are more than 80 communities in the United States that are already using potable water systems and putting that water into production. That's it. That's all. That's what I was asked to present. So I hope I got through that okay, and I hope I covered what you wanted. But if you have questions, do we have time for questions, or I can stay? If you guys have additional questions, I can stay here all day. You guys are way more fun than sitting at my desk.
Not my question,
Yeah.
but probably the thing I hear more than anywhere else is why don't we stop development?
Sure.
And
No,
so
that's-
how do you answer?
That's-
That's not my question.
Yeah.
That's what I hear all the time.
We hear it all the time too. It's super fun. Okay, so I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting that the district does not have any development or land use authority. That is true. But people can choose to live where they want in a free country. And so when you have private property and you're paying property taxes on that, you have the right to develop that parcel. That is a national right that is given to us as citizens of this country, and the district does not have any jurisdiction or any desire to prohibit or limit growth. What we can do and what we are doing is making sure that those new developments are more efficient and are using less water than the existing developments. So we hear that all the time. We really do, and that's a tricky question. I grew up in Las Vegas, and in the 1980s, Las Vegas ran out of water. When it was about 600,000 residents, that's now more than 2 million people. I don't think we will become Las Vegas, but we are becoming much more astute with how our water is being used. New technology is allowing us to do things that we haven't been able to do before. So our job is to monitor growth, and we do, and make sure that we're always staying ahead of that demand. The hard thing for the district is that, are you guys familiar, we're currently developing a project in Tokerville called Chief Toker Reservoir. It will store about 3,800 acre feet of water, very small, 100 acres, That took us over 20 years to get the environmental permits.
Oh,
So our challenge when it comes to, we are a rapidly growing community. We would be fine if we slowed down just a tad. It would make our jobs a lot easier. But that's also why we're so proactive in our planning. We have a 20-year water supply plan. This chart right here is 20 years. We'll go back to that real quick. And you'll see that we're staying ahead of demand. The other thing, we have a 50-year regional master plan. And a lot of people are like, 50 years, you know, but we are looking that far out because we have to. We are aggressively pursuing conservation and any water supply development projects that we can to be able to address the new connections that are coming. The growth is occurring. So we are choosing to be proactive and plan for it so that we do not create an issue with our community, quality of life, and our economy. Yeah.
Can you go back to the slide that shows the difference between the penalty level
Oh,
of
sure.
high use?
You bet. The
because
excess
it-
water use surcharge. Yeah.
There you go. So homes built prior to 2023.
Correct.
What's
What's the
plan
difference?
to do to get them to come down to the level that new,
The grass replacement program.
well, that's.
That is, and it
that's
is,
one
and it
thing,
is
right?
voluntary,
It's-
right?
That's it.
It's voluntary.
So-
But it's a prorated ratio, right? Our conservation goals factor in, okay, we anticipate this conservation savings from new connections and we anticipate this conservation savings from existing connections. Homes are naturally becoming more water efficient. We talk a lot about the grass replacement program because that gives us the biggest bang for our buck. But can anybody buy a 5-gallon flush toilet anymore? You can't even buy it. So and landscapes are naturally becoming more water efficient because a lot of our aging demographic do not want the burden of lawn care. And so it's interesting because there are a lot of the ones that are making those transitions is they don't have the recreational uses of their landscape anymore and they're looking for something that's easier to maintain and they're making those transitions. So we are seeing tremendous reductions in existing resident water use, which is phenomenal. It's great. Our residents are amazing. We really do have a good community. There was another hand, sorry.
I'd like to hear your point of view about the multi-state Colorado River thing. There was a deadline, I think, in March,
Yeah.
which is come and gone. I'm not sure what happened there. Everybody's seen Miles from Raymond.
Yeah.
The federal government's gonna step in. Is it as contentious as it sounds, and what's the future look like, and what's going on?
I love I love this question on the Colorado River. What time do I need to be done? Because I could talk about this for all day. But what time do I need to be done?
We say 12 to 1, but it's
It's
on
past
your
that.
time,
We
Laura.
can stay
It's
here as
your
long as
time.
we want.
Anything that's coming into this space.
Okay, we're okay.
No,
If
we're
anybody
fine.
needs to leave,
Yeah.
I'm not offended. We'll just make fun of you after you're done. Okay, Colorado River, one of my favorite topics, because I think there's so much misunderstanding. So in 1922, there was a Colorado River Compact. Every state was given a certain allocation of water. There was the upper division and the lower division. Upper division is Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and Wyoming. Lower division is Nevada, Arizona, and California. Each division, each basin was given the entitlement to 7.5 million acre feet a year. What year was it? My brain. In 2006, Lake Mead was critically low and Lake Powell was almost full. And so they entered into agreement that was, among other things, and primarily for hydrological purposes, they said that there would be a benefit to having both of the reservoirs at comparable levels. So we entered into what's called a Basin Equalization Agreement in 2006 that is expiring and being renegotiated. But what that Basin Equalization Agreement did is it set the surplus supplies in Lake Powell to bolster the levels in Lake Mead. It just unfortunately didn't happen. you know, there's some that are of the opinion that that agreement essentially drained both reservoirs. The lower basin is entitled to 7.5 million acre feet of water a year. They're averaging over a 10-year period anywhere from 9 to 10 million acre feet of water. The upper basin states, by comparison, are using 3 to 4 million acre feet of water per year. So you can see that there's some inequity built into the uses.
So basically, what you're saying is that much water didn't come down to satisfy both of those agreements.
So when there are hydrologic shortages in the river, when the river does not produce enough water to meet that full allocation, right now, just primarily due to infrastructure and primarily due to infrastructure, the upper basin states have to adjust their uses every year based on what's available in the system, right? So 90% of the Colorado River is produced in the upper basin, but almost all of the shortages are also borne by the upper basin states. The reason being is because Lake Powell sits at the bottom of the upper basin states. And we have a very reliable water savings. Remember how I talked about how important reservoirs are? The lower basin states benefit from that storage in Lake Powell, and they get a regular release of water that is very reliable, that can be used in Nevada, Arizona, and California. So these discussions that are underway right now are super fun. They are probably more complicated than is being perceived in the public, because you now have the upper basin states that are saying, we are not currently using our existing allocation, and therefore we should not have to share any more of the hydrologic shortages in the system. The lower basin states gets a reliable supply, and they need to share. When Mother Nature doesn't produce enough water, they need to share in those shortages. The other major difference is evaporation. The upper basin states account for evaporative losses in their system so that we don't drain the system. The lower basin states, through this negotiation process, has agreed to account for evaporation, because evaporation in the lower basin is 1.5 million acre feet. It's not insignificant. So that was part of the problem. The lower basin users were using historically they were using more than their allocation. Recently they were using their allocation or a little bit less, but they weren't adjusting for hydrologic shortages, so they were taking more out of the system than there was. It's like a bank account. If you withdraw more money than you have in it, it's going to go into a deficit. So that's what's happened on the Colorado River system. The negotiations are underway to clarify. We are not renegotiating the 1922 compact. We are negotiating how hydrologic shortages in the river will be more equitably shared, and how those reservoirs, Lakes Powell and Lakes Mead, will operate. So I could talk to you about that.
That's great, thank you.
It's actually one of my favorite topics, because it's so fascinating, and it's tricky, because water is an economic powerhouse. If you have water, you have a high quality of life, you have a booming economy. If you do not have water, if you do not have water, you have any other problem that you think you have goes away, right? You cannot survive without water. And so all of these states and the federal government have the tough job of figuring out how to protect their respective water rights and be able to compromise on a larger scale to be equitable and fair. It's tricky. Question here and then here, sir. Sorry, she keeps trumping me.
Well, this 1920 whatever
Yeah,
compact,
1922.
is that sealed, is that written in stone or whatever?
It is congressionally approved. And at this point, there is not an interest in renegotiating the contract. We can't even update the agreement without a little bit of, super fun politics. Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky because, the most of the water originates in the upper basin, but where is the political powerhouse? It's in the lower basin. Yeah. It's tricky. Okay, you had your question, and then I'll come to you, sir.
how do you monitor the health of the individual aquifers within Washington County, and what's the trend?
Sure. So we're actually starting another groundwater basin analysis. We coordinate with USGS and other environmental agencies where they go in and they do extractions, they look at the water quality, they provide us estimates on how much water is in the aquifer, they look at the uses of that aquifer and see if there's any interconnectivity with other water rights and uses on the system. So that's all done by super smart people who know way more than I do. Thank you for coming. I hope it was interesting. But yeah, it's that.
We're gonna talk about you.
Yeah, no, it's only nice things. I only say nice things. Let's see, you got a question?
Mine piggybacks off Guy's, but define an aquifer in Washington County and the area that it is in and its depth, etc.
So the one that I'm most familiar with is the
Just
Sand
one.
Hollow Aquifer, this is out of Sand Hollow. So under Sand Hollow Aquifer is a Navajo sandstone aquifer, and the underground capacity of that particular aquifer is 300,000 acre feet. We estimate that there's anywhere from 100 to 150,000 acre feet in that aquifer right now, but we are doing that groundwater management analysis where we're going to go in and get updated. The geologists, the US, we have really smart people that come in, and that's a science I don't know enough about,
Okay.
but they'll go through and do that.
But there's more than one.
Oh, there's more than one, correct.
So it's not at X number of feet below the surface.
It varies depending
and
on
so many
the,
feet deep. It depends on
It-
whether it's over in Santa Clara or whether it's in Park.
correct, because the geology is different. The other thing that's interesting is, we frequently, there is the misconception that, there's an abundance of groundwater in Washington County and we don't have a water supply issue. That water is spoken for and being put into use. And as agriculture is naturally transitioning to municipal development, what's happening? Those fields aren't getting that flood irrigation and that aquifer is drying up, right? So the groundwater it's a life. You can make it more robust or you can deplete it. It just depends. The state regulates groundwater extractions carefully because if you mine too much groundwater, if you take out too much groundwater, it causes surface issues. So we have to be careful. So our groundwater is strictly monitored. We can put in so much and we can take out so much, but we can't, if we had a water supply crisis, we couldn't extract 100,000 acre feet out of Sand Hollow Aquifer without causing some issues.
Okay, the other half. Ben Everett, who is a geologist and used to be in this congregation, comes back from time to time. I've heard said, I didn't hear him say it, but I heard other people say he said. There's an aquifer that runs from Kanab all the way through here, but it's down like 1,500, and I just throwing that
Yeah,
number,
no, it's fine.
1,500 feet, but it's huge. But I understand it's protected. It's not, people are not allowed to drill down to it. Is that?
So the district has submitted a deep well application water right to the state. That would go down into the surface more than a mile, just to put that into perspective, to see if there is available water, what the water quality is. Because a lot of times there might be a water source, but it might be contaminated from salts or oils or other things, and just the treatment of that source might be cost prohibitive.
Mm-hmm.
And the second part of that is, number one, you've got the issue of, number one, is the water there? Number two, if there is water, what's the quality? Number three, if you extract that water, does it impact any other users? And so there's a whole science to that.
Mm-hmm.
But the district has filed the application for deep wells in Washington County should that source become available. That is a pretty expensive process, so we're focusing on other things right now. But that, if you look at our 50-year water supply plan that I was talking about on our website, deep well exploration is on that list. Great question. Yes?
I was wanting to go back to the Colorado River. Where it originates is not getting the snowfall
I
that
know.
it historically has,
Mhm.
which limits the amount of water that goes in, but is California and Nevada, are they still getting, it's, my understanding is that they're still getting their share of water.
Yes.
Even though the snowfall that's being put in it up above is no longer there. Therefore, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, whatever, the upper
Yeah.
basin, is not getting their water for sure, because it's all going down to, their.
That is correct. A lot
So
of
when you say that they're not getting their allocation, they can't get it their allocation because it's not there.
So one of the things that we like to think in the water world is the importance of infrastructure, right? The reason why the lower basin has a reliable yield of Colorado River water is because of Lake Powell.
Mhm.
The reason why Washington County can support almost 300,000 people every year is because of infrastructure. So every river system has high water years and low water years. Look at any period of time, you're going to have wet years, you're going to have dry years. In 2023, we had a phenomenal water year. We filled all of our local reservoirs. We are still living off of that storage today. So a lot of that comes back to the need to develop additional infrastructure to capture that water in high water years when it's available to the upper basin states. Because we call them hydrologic shortages, but in essential, there's no snow, there's no runoff, there's no water being collected, and it's creating a water supply shortage. But the development of additional infrastructure will help to offset those really dry years. Interestingly enough, your question is the lower basin states, one of their proposals said we will agree to X, Y, and Z if the upper basin states won't develop any additional Colorado River water. And you can understand why the upper basin states were not super excited with that proposal. So that's why when you're asking like, has it been an interesting process? Yes. The compact allows and authorizes it gives water allocations to the users. The interesting thing about the compact is that the upper basin states recognized that there would be years that the Colorado River would not yield as much water as they thought it would. So the upper basin states had the foresight to issue their states a percentage. Utah gets 14% of the upper basin's water right, which on a 7.5 million acre foot, that's like 1.7, ish, acre feet of water. When the lower basin states looked at their Colorado River allocation, they get set amounts. California gets 4.4 million acre feet. Nevada gets 300,000 acre feet. Arizona gets, so they have set amounts. As a result, the upper basin is better equipped to deal with shortages because we take a percentage of available supply, whereas in the lower basins is set up to get a total yield. It's very different. The other thing that's really interesting is the upper basin states have an upper basin commission, and they kind of make the decisions amongst the 4 states. The lower basin states, at the time the river was being divided, that allocation was being divided to the lower basin states, they could not agree, and therefore they are managed by the Federal Bureau of Reclamation. So the basins are very, very distinct and unique. The management, the accounting, the hydrology, the infrastructure, there's a lot of variations. Yes?
On that, the upper compact, those states right there, and the infrastructure, is that the states working together for the infrastructure, or is it like Utah does its own, Colorado does
Correct.
its own, they all do their own?
Correct. So the Colorado River is a compact, I don't know how detailed you guys want me to be. I could get really boring really quick. The Colorado River system is a compact. So that water is managed on a compact basis, meaning that if the 5 of us all had a water allocation in the Colorado River, I would get so much, he would get so much, she would get so much. But if it's within a state, if it's a state water right, it depends on the priority system. It goes back to the priority date of when that water was put into beneficial use. It's not a compact. So a compact is a entitlement for a certain allocation of water that is given to the state. The state takes that water and they would use it within the state based on the water rights and the beneficial uses of that source. Most of Utah's Colorado River water is used for agricultural production, which is the case throughout the basin. The largest user of Colorado River water would be the Central Utah Water Conservancy District that feeds like Provo, Orem, and those communities in that region. Great question, yeah. Sorry. She keeps raising, you two are in sync. But she's always just a little bit before you. I'm so sorry. Trying to be fair here.
I wanted to ask, touching on that, I've heard, you know, you always go to dinners and people will talk about these things, or, so I don't know how factual this is, but that a lot of our water is used for agriculture, maybe more than.
Not in Washington County.
But I'm talking, now I'm talking about Utah.
Oh, in Utah, yes, absolutely. The majority of water is used for agricultural purposes.
And is all of it needed for agricultural purposes? Is there not some controversy over that?
Agricultural optimization programs. That's what it's called. So the state is working with our large agricultural communities to reduce their consumptive uses. So the state has funded things, for example, instead of flood irrigation, doing drip irrigation, which if the crop can accommodate that, can allow for that. So you're seeing a lot of those efforts underway now.
And is a lot of our water used also for agriculture, for products that go, say, out of the country?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's
And not food
a huge economic factor in our economy. Yeah, it contributes. The agricultural community is a very large economic contributor to Utah's. Yeah, I was gonna say it's an economic contributor to our economy, obviously. But yeah, it provides a significant revenue for sure.
Do all Utah counties have a conservancy district?
So water conservancy districts throughout the state are state entities. A lot of people are surprised to hear that. But a lot of people think that we're a county entity. We are a subdivision of the state. There are 4 big water conservancy districts in Utah that serve 95% of the population. We're the smallest of the big 4. And then there's a lot of smaller water conservancy districts in other regions. The reason why water conservancy districts are so important is because municipalities, our municipal customers do have water, their own water portfolios, but they can only develop the water within their jurisdiction. The districts are able to look at regions and export water that serves the entire community. So we provide, I think, about 60 to 70% of the water to the municipalities that's being used today. And we require that the cities fully maximize their available water before they come to the district. So all new development will be dependent on the district. So that's exciting for us to be able to plan for those new connections. It makes our jobs really fun and tricky sometimes because the municipalities have fully developed their water and now the district bears the responsibility to secure the additional water for ongoing growth.
I wanted to go back to another question
Sure.
that I had associated with those different tiers
Okay.
of penalty.
You bet.
there. So, is anything being done to address, aside from retiring the voluntary retirement of lawns, is anything being addressed to reduce the requirements for residences built before 2023?
No, there are voluntary programs, but here's what you need to remember is that when you pay an impact fee, you're paying an impact fee for a certain allocation of water, right? So before 2023, the state required that every connection was guaranteed 0.89 acre feet of water. That was it was state mandated. That includes a buffer for fire flows, for peak demand. So there's a bunch of stuff that goes into that. But every new connection was, or every connection pre-2023 was required to meet 0.89 acre feet of water. The district said that's not encouraging conservation. That's, we need a more aggressive rate. At 0.89, we're not using that much. There's excess capacity in our system that could be put to beneficial use. So the state actually changed the law and said that you could look at your average use, and there's a whole engineering estimate that goes into it. And so you can actually make some modifications to that. So we, in our impact fee facilities plan, which looks at the cost of our connection fees, we went through and said, okay, we would like to adjust that 0.89 to a 0.59 to account for conservation and to account for trends in new technology and development that we're seeing in the community, and to encourage greater efficiency. So these people paid for 0.89 acre feet of water. If you add 36,000 gallons of water over 12 months, what does that equal? 0.89 acre feet of water. If you take these numbers here and add them throughout all the months, it equals 0.59 acre feet of water. So we have to, nothing that we do is arbitrary. We try to be fair, we try to be equitable. Do we think that there's greater conservation savings with existing, the pre-2023 connections? Absolutely. Do we want them to conserve more? Absolutely. It's voluntary because they paid for the water they're using. Does that make sense?
No.
No?
Well, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
It's, I mean,
we're living in a capitalist society.
Yeah.
If you want to waste something, you better be prepared to pay for it.
And there is a lot of discussion about having a different, because like I said, the excess water use surcharge for post-2023 is $10 per 1,000 gallons. Pre, it's $1 per 1,000 gallons.
Yeah.
So there's some opportunities to adjust that. And our board has even gone as far as to saying that we would like to do that. I will tell you, 36,000 gallons of water a month is crazy high. Crazy high.
Well, and you mentioned that.
Yeah.
You already mentioned that. So, the thought process is, why is it so high?
Because that was the state requirement at the time they connected.
At that time, which is no longer relevant, and the situation has changed.
Sure.
So all of the justification is there for the legal reduction of that, but we don't do that.
That is a political issue.
Sure.
Yeah, that is a political issue. Because the district looks and says, you have paid for the right to use that water. Because all water in the state of Utah is owned by the state of Utah, right? But you have a right to use that water. You paid for that right. Is it fair? And I am not please do not misunderstand me. I am clearly playing devil's advocate here. Is it fair for me to come to you? Let's say I move to the community today, and I say, Guy, I want to live next door, so I need you to give me half of your water. Even though you paid for it and you're using it, I really like this place. I need half of your water. That's what we're asking. That's what we would be asking. That's tricky. That's not something that becomes a political issue. We try to incentivize because we have no jurisdiction to make any other changes at this time. But voluntary, we're giving you incentives, we're cheering for you, and the best thing, Guy, is that people are responding with our voluntary measures. We are far superior in our state program participation of conservation programs. We are doing more than any other area in the state. So our community is naturally responding. We will continue to provide incentives. We will continue to encourage and educate and provide messaging. But that is within our jurisdiction to do that. It's not currently in our jurisdiction to prohibit one individual's water use for the benefit of another.
And these are residential? This is residential?
This is resident. Well, there's fees for commercial and institutional and industrial as well, but yes. This is residential.
But there's
Well,
no,
my house was built in 1996. I had no idea about 36,
So where do you live?
Bloomington Hills.
Okay, so do you know that almost all of our cities, with the exception of Ivans, who's working on it, has a smart meter? So I can go on my phone right now and see how many gallons of water I'm using every single hour. Do you know that that is an option?
We don't know this, and so people are conserving. I know I've gone to
Yeah.
your program. My grass is growing. We've gone to the drip. You buy, savings. It's like turning off your water.
Yeah.
Don't use it. I mean, because we have no idea that
So-
was allowed.
so
you
St.
just
George-
hear water shortage, so your mind clicks in, and you try.
Go to wcwcd.gov/smart meters and click
Okay.
on the link for St. George. There's an app, there's a portal, you can look at it on your phone, you can look at it on a computer. I can tell you exactly how many gallons of water I use every hour. Now, I'm a water nerd, most people don't look at it that much. But what I love is I was in New York and I have it signed up for a leak notice. And I was in New York, and on day 4 of my trip, I got a text message saying, you've had continuous water flow at your house for 3 days. And I was like, oh no, what happened? So I called my neighbor and I'm like, hey, do you see anything? And he, best neighbors ever, went over, he's like, I don't see anything, I don't hear anything. And I said, would you just turn off the water? I just don't want to come home and find something askew in the house. So he turned off the water for me. I came home, I turned on the water, guess what it was?
Toilet?
A toilet flap. I have lived in Washington County since 2013. My water use in 3 days was higher than any monthly water use that I've had in 13 years. From a running, the toilet flapper lid, so now I'm paranoid. So now when I go out of town, I flush it. Are you gonna seal it? I just don't want to. But yeah, you would be shocked at how much water is wasted in lakes. I've taken so much time. I am happy to stay if you have more questions, but I don't want to hold the rest of you hostage. Thank you so much for help. I hope I did good today. I hope that was beneficial. I'm happy to answer any other questions though. And if any of you have an interest in touring our infrastructure, let me know. We've got some projects underway. We've got existing infrastructure under development. We're always happy to give you guys tour of facilities.
I'd love to see some articles because this is so technical and you don't pick it up, and I know we've got it recorded so I can see it again.
I'm sorry. You
No,
can
that's,
watch me
no,
twice.
no, don't be sorry, please. But I'm looking for articles that I can read more than once because
Okay.
I'm not gonna pick up, so that I can come to understand this. It would be hard for me to kind of give a presentation myself
Sure.
on this.
If you visit the district's website, we have quite a bit of information, and all of our reports, all of them, are publicly posted under the resources tab. Some of the reports are drafted by engineers or geologists, so they're very technical, but if you just want kind of a good overview, our website is a great resource.
Okay.
And anytime you have questions, you can call the district and we're happy to talk to you and provide you with any information or reports or contacts to call for additional questions.
Or, and bibliography of articles would be helpful too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, you bet. Thank you. Sorry, I took too long. I'm sorry.
No,